Five, four, three, two, one.
Shadow Worlds Radio presents Coach Ed's Read and Attack Sports Talk Show.
This is the Read and Attack Show.
This is a sports show where I dive into sports all across the world.
This is the Read and Attack Sports Talk Show.
And I give you my perspective.
Coach Ed
And Attack.
Sports Talk Show.
I'm going to attack it just like I would as a coach.
Read and Attack.
Read and Attack.
Sports Talk Show.
I'm going to attack it just like I would as a coach.
Coach Ed's Read and Attack.
And I give you my perspective.
This is the Read and Attack Sports Talk Show.
Thank you all for tuning in today.
Read and Attack. Sports
This
Talk
is a
Show.
sports show where I dive into sports all across the world.
Coach Ed
Read and Attack.
Sports Talk Show. Read and Attack.
Read and Attack Show.
What is going on, sports fans? It's me, Coach Ed. Thanks for tuning in today to the first episode of my new show, Coach Ed's Read and Attack Sports Show. This is a sports show where I dive into sports all across the world, and I give you my perspective of those sports, what I think is going on, what I see. I'm going to attack it just like I would as a coach. I'm going to go in, analyze it, break it down, see the strengths, the weaknesses, how, if there's anything that needs to improve, anything of that nature. Or I'm just going to give you my opinion on what I see. So there's so many sports to talk about. So today's show is really action-packed, filled, however you want to categorize it. So I'm really excited to bring you my new sports show today. So the first show segment that we're going to talk about is the NFL free agency. Now, there's been a lot going on in the NFL this year. So from my favorite team, the New York Football Giants, to news that's happening even today that just happened. So I want to go in and I want to talk about that for a little bit, giving you my perspective, what I'm seeing before I move on to the next segment. So with that being said, I am going to start with my team, the New York Football Giants. It's been a really exciting time in Giants land. Many other fans, there's so many debates, starting with Daniel Jones. The Giants did re-sign Daniel Jones to a big contract, 4 years, $160 million. There's 82 of that is guaranteed, but literally they can get out of that contract after 2 years. So the Giants general manager Joe Schoen has been masterfully working and building and acquiring players in a great way. As I talk to people, I would say that Joe Schoen is playing chess, and he's masterfully playing chess. He's literally 2 to 3 to 4 moves ahead when the things that he's done. It surprised many Giants fans, myself included, but I'm really excited and I love what I'm seeing. Now he did have to end up tagging Saquon Barkley, so that's $10 million, but they are still trying to work out a negotiation to change that and get him a bigger contract, but also lessening this year's dollar cap. So I trust Shane's going to be able to do that. So, and many fans are excited to see what happens with that, with the move with Saquon Barkley. Now, the next move I found so profound. I think this is probably one of his greatest moves that he did. It is trading with the Las Vegas Raiders for Darren Waller. Now, the Giants gave up a third-round draft pick, and that's the third-round draft pick that they acquired from Kansas City when they did a trade last year. And literally, that's what you ended up getting for that pick is Darren Waller. Waller is an all-pro tight end. he does everything that the Giants have been looking for. Not only can he play inline, he can flex out. He can move around. He's big, 6'6", 260 pounds. So he's a matchup nightmare. And defenses are going to have to key on him a lot because of his ability to catch the ball and then make plays after catching the ball. The Giants haven't had that in a long while. So that's something that's really exciting. And then what it does is help other players on the offense, even Saquon Barkley. Waller can get in there and he can block. So it's not like he's just a pass-catching tight end. He's a guy who can get in there. I'm not going to say that he's the elite of the elite in blocking, but he's serviceable. He's good enough to go in and move the bodies of the defenders so our running backs can make plays. You know, you also brought in what the Giants needed was Bobby Okereke, linebacker, 4 years, $40 million. But 22 of that is guaranteed. You can get out after that. Get out of that after 2 years. He's a linebacker who can handle the run. He's not going to over pursue. He's going to read. He's smart. He's instinctive. He's physical. He can also play in man and zone. Now, he came over from the Indianapolis Colts. Now, he did play a lot of zone there. He was instinctive, but when he did play man, he was right there with his offensive player that he was supposed to cover. So it's really interesting what Joe Schoen is doing. Now, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the picks, but a lot of them are like that. They're contracts that, you know, the Giants can get out after 1 or 2 years. So that's where Joe Schoen has been very masterful in his approach to free agency. Now, some of the other big moves that happened. Let's take a look here. You had Derek Carr. He went from Las Vegas and as a free agent, and he signed with the New Orleans Saints. He signed for 4 years and $150 million. So he's averaging about $37.5 million per year. But he's given the Saints a quarterback that they need, especially in the division that they play in the NFC South. They also did re-sign Jameis Winston, so they have a very capable backup to come in, and if anything did happen to Carr, who's serviceable. So that's a really good move for them. Now, they do have to add on some more key pieces. They did re-sign restructure Michael Thomas, so they are bringing him back. But, you know, they're doing the smart things that, you know, in my eyes, when I go back and I look at it, but right now, everything that I looked at, and the free agency continues, they are the leaders of that division. Now, it's not the greatest division. You know, last year, you know, the Buccaneers made the playoffs with a below 500 record. So this division is winnable. So having Derek Carr, a good quarterback, not saying he's the elite of the elite, but he's a good quarterback, and you give him the right tools, they'll be able to go ahead and compete and possibly win in that division. Free agency overall has not been the big bang bucks type of free agency. I mean, most of there have been some big bucks players. Mike McGlinchey going from San Francisco to Denver, 5 years, $87.5 million. You had Juwan Taylor, a right tackle, going from Jacksonville to Kansas City for $80 million. Jimmy Garoppolo going from Frisco to Vegas, 3 years, $72.75 million. So, but, you know, guys who you were expecting to make some big bucks really didn't make as much money as I thought. So it's very interesting, especially in the linebacker aspect. I mean, with my Giants, we were looking for linebackers, and, you know, there were some linebackers who I thought were going to make some big bucks, and they really didn't. So, I mean, it's very interesting with the player movement that I'm seeing right now in the NFL. So it's intriguing, it's exciting, and I'm excited to see how things transpire as we continue on into free agency. Now, looking at some of the other big names that moved, one of the biggest ones for me that I found very intriguing was Orlando Brown Jr. He played left tackle for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs last year, and they ended up bringing in Juwan Taylor. So, you know, the thought is that Taylor's going to be playing the left tackle, and Brown, he didn't want to play right tackle. He played that in Baltimore, and he signed with Kansas City, or was traded to Kansas City, because he wanted the opportunity to play the left tackle. Well, now, and he played with one of the best, if not the best, quarterbacks with Kansas City, but now he's going over to Cincinnati, and he's going to be the left tackle for Joe Burrow. But I did find that very interesting that, you know what, why would Kansas City just move on from him if he's a good left tackle? He helps you guys win a Super Bowl. So I think there's more to that. That's just my opinion. I have no facts on that. But as a coach, looking at things of that nature, it left me wondering why. Why is this kid from Baltimore to Kansas City? Kansas City let him play left tackle, win the Super Bowl. But you win a Super Bowl and you let him go, and you go get someone else to possibly play that left tackle, more than likely to play that left tackle. That really leaves me wondering what's going on with this guy. What is it that made Kansas City want to move on from him? So it's really interesting. That was just one of the things that I found very interesting. And by the way, his contract was 4 years, $64 million. So, you know, it's an interesting contract. He didn't get as much as Juwan Taylor did, but, you know, it is a good contract. Now, one of the players that I, you know, as a Giants fan, and many Giants fans was keeping an eye on, many Giants fans wanted him to end up being a Giant, was Tremaine Edmunds. Now, he left Buffalo. He's a very good linebacker. He's a complete tool linebacker. You know, he can play the run, he can play the pass. He's very smart, instinctive. He's a leader. So he signed with Chicago. He left Buffalo for Chicago, 4 years, $72 million. So initially, there were many reports that were saying that he was going to make about $100 million. And I said, whoa, that's definitely out of the Giants' range. But of course, you know, Shane did his due diligence. He's familiar with the player coming from Buffalo. But you know what? Saw what he was going to get. Also saw what the market was, and he ended up getting a more than suitable, and I think probably a better fit for the Giants in Bobby Okereke. But I don't want to take away from Edmunds. He's definitely a good linebacker. But you know, again, when you're making a possible $28 million less than what you were projected, that shows me the market in itself, it's not as expansive. You know, it's not free flowing as, you know, you would thought. And I also think it's a matter of the names that are out there. You know, it's not that those big names. Now, next year, there's supposed to be a lot of big names coming out. So you might see, you know, the spending, and I think teams are doing that, keeping that in mind. I know my Giants, you know, are projected to have, you know, close to or over $100 million next year. So, you know, and that's including some of the moves that they've made this year. So I'm keeping that in mind when I look at this. And that's the thing about free agency. So, you know, it's their timing. When are you going to be a free agent? The players that are out there, do you have other big name players that are going to drive the market up? You know, so those are things that I looked at this year, you know, that's very interesting. One of the other things I'm interested in is the New York Jets. You know, right now, there's a lot going on with the Jets. Many teams are trying to see what's happening with the Aaron Rodgers situation. Now, they've put all their eggs in the basket, as it has been said, because they didn't go for Carr or any of the other quarterbacks that were out there. They're waiting to see, and Rodgers has said he wants to basically play for the Jets. So, you know, they're trying to work out a trade, but you know what? It hasn't happened as yet. Why? I can't answer that, but it's very interesting to me that, you know what, something has been negotiated. Is it that first round draft pick that the Jets don't want to give up? It could be. You don't know with Rodgers how long you're going to have him. He may come here and after 1 year say he wants to retire. He has a big contract. Also, how do you restructure that contract? What do you do with current players on your roster? Because there's going to have to be a lot of changes. So that's going to be interesting. It is interesting, and I'm going to continue to monitor that. And also, what happens if they don't get him? Do they try and transition and make a strong one with the Baltimore Ravens for Lamar Jackson? I mean, Lamar Jackson is on the franchise. And if you negotiate and secure him, you talk to Baltimore about the draft picks, up to 2 first-round draft picks. So, I mean, there's a lot going on with the Jets, and I find it very interesting. Now, the Jets did sign Allen Lazard, one of the receivers that Rodgers is familiar with. There's talk about other receivers coming over, Randall Cobb. So again, there's so many different moving parts with this. I'm just going to continue to monitor it and see how things go. So again, I find it a very interesting situation. Now, there is another move that I wanted to talk about today. And I mean, within my division, the NFC East, the other teams, many teams have been, setting up for, their moves, whether it's defensive players or if it's offensive players. But I wanted to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Today they made a trade that was very interesting to me. So now today the Cowboys made a trade with the Houston Texans for Brandon Cooks. That's an interesting trade for me. And the reason why I say that is this. What they're doing is they're adding on to their plethora of receivers that they have in their offensive system. So, Dallas bringing him in to go with CeeDee Lambs and T.Y. Hilton, it really helps their offense. Now I find it very interesting that they do that. It really pushes them to the front of the division. Along with what the Giants are doing, Philadelphia has lost quite a few players on both sides of the ball, especially on the defense side of the ball. So that's also telling me that, the other teams in the division, even Washington, making some trade changes, bringing in a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. The NFC East is going to be very stout this year. And Dallas is going to be one that you definitely have to watch out for. They also made a good acquisition on the defense, bringing in a cornerback to go along with their All-Pro cornerback over there. So I just found it very interesting. And also all the moves that are happening. You have Mike Gesicki signing with New England after being in Miami last year. So it's just all the moves. I really find it very interesting. My Giants losing Julian Love, who signed with the Seattle Seahawks to go over there and help their defensive backfield. So that's going to open up a spot within our defensive backfield, in terms of, bringing in the safety. So I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at all the different players. Giants bringing back Darius Slayton, linebacker David Long, who I had also was interested in. Went from Tennessee to Miami for 2 years at $11 million, which shows, how the market is not as strong for the linebackers as initially we had hoped for. So again, I'm just going through looking at these moves, and I really find a lot of them interesting and exciting. I think it's going to be an exciting season, when the football season starts. So, the Buccaneers, they released Cameron Brate and Leonard Fournette because of, they're so far in the hole in terms of free agency and also salary cap. Tom Brady's not coming back. It just opens up so much more. And then what this does is on the back end, this allows other teams to, sit back, see how things are being played out, and you can come at some of these guys, see if they're hungry. If they're not picked up, you might be able to get them for a veteran minimum. A veteran minimum for some is about $1 million, a little bit over that. So, that's very intriguing and interesting. And the game that's being played is just, it's I don't want to say masterful, but it's very interesting and exciting. I see former Giant and former Minnesota Viking Dalvin Tomlinson. He left Minnesota and he's going to Cleveland. He helps their defensive line, because they've already had a good one. So, and he signed 4 years, $57 million. So, and I find that it's it's a great move for them. So, and they can get out of their contract with him after about 3 years and have only played about $42.5 million. So, it's like I said earlier, the games that these GMs are playing with these players, the market is not as expansive as it has been talked. But some players are getting their money, and there's a lot of movement going on with that. So I definitely find that interesting and intriguing and exciting. So I'm going to continue to watch that as we go. We'll talk more about that later in the future. The next thing I want to talk about, of course, is the NFL draft. Players are, the young players that are coming out are very exciting, interesting. I just find that I did my big board earlier in the season before the combine, and there were players. My number one overall player is no longer my number one overall with field. But some of it also deals with on the field, his on the field pro day. So things can change with his personal workouts for teams. And I'm talking about Jalen Carter, a defensive lineman from Georgia. Now, I had him after watching film on him, seeing how he played with Georgia, the type of command, his abilities. He was my number one player, followed by Will Anderson, edge from Alabama. But Carter had his situation where at the combine, there was a arrest warrant put out for him, and he had to go handle that. To his credit, he did. He handled it, went to court, ended up with probation. But when he had their pro days at Georgia, he came in 9 pounds heavier. Now, coming in 9 pounds heavier, and then watching some of the drills that he did, he wasn't as fluid. It didn't seem like he was as focused. And I don't know if all of that distraction caused him to really lose the focus. But it also leaves me wondering what some of these other organizations, how do they see him? I mean, that's very concerning for me that, a kid of this talent, he's going to drop. But, if he had went out there and just dominated on his pro day, more than likely he would have stayed in my top position. And I think he would have stayed within the top 10. Now, I've even had conversations with others that, if he drops, if he drops as low as number 20, I've even said my Giants trade up and go get him, because that's the type of player that you want for your future. If you can have him along with Dexter Lawrence, it solidifies the inside of your defensive line. My point being that, this kid, for him to drop like this, it's concerning, and his performance, it just leaves me wondering, maybe he's better off going to, instead of being in some of these organizations higher up, there's going to be a lot of pressure. Maybe he's not right now ready to handle that. So you need to help develop him because he's still young. I mean, all these guys coming in are young for the most part. Some are 25, but, he's 21 years old. So, that just tells me all I need to know. But, in terms of the board itself, I mean, I find when the draft comes up, I don't have a lot of quarterbacks per se high up. I mean, my number 3, my number 2 is C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. But the other quarterbacks, I don't have. Well, yes, I do. I have Will Levis right behind C.J. Stroud. But I know most would say, what about Bryce Young? I really want to see him. I have my concerns about him, being that he's 5'10", and they said he weighed in at 204 at the combine, but that might be just weight he put on just to weigh in, and then he loses it. I mean, my understanding is, he played around 190, 194 at Alabama, so can he handle? If he has the weight, can he maintain it? Can he sustain? Kid is smart. Has good accuracy. He has all the tools to play quarterback. His arm is just not as strong as I thought, looking at a lot of the film. Maybe it's the receivers that he had this year. Maybe it's the offensive line. I had some, I don't want to say concerns, but I did wonder about his anticipation. I mean, I did see one film where, he did seem all right with anticipation. So Maybe he moves up. I don't know right now. I just, I'm waiting for Alabama's Pro Day to see if they show it, and if they do, to watch him and see how he performs. So again, my board is it's fluid. It's apt to change, but I do like a lot of these kids that are coming out. It's a type of draft that I find very exciting, and I'm waiting to see how these kids go out and how they perform on their pro days. So let me just talk a little bit about some of these guys. All right, one that has me intrigued, and I think he's intrigued with a lot of evaluators, a lot of scouts, teams, because I think he has the tools to eventually be the best player to come out of this draft. But right now, I don't know. I question maybe he should have went back to school for another year, and that's Anthony Richardson. Now, I'm never going to begrudge a man to come out and do what he has to do for his family, and for himself. He has every right to do that, and I fully support that. So I want people to understand that. Don't think that I'm saying that he's not a good quarterback. No, he has all the tools. Athleticism is off the charts. I mean, the kid is 6'4", 6'5", 245 pounds. I mean, he has a rocket of an arm. Now, it would not surprise me if he went number 1 overall to Carolina, because to me that says maybe they're thinking they're going to catch a genie in a bottle and end up with another Cam Newton. But he has the tools to surpass all these other quarterbacks. His accuracy is not the greatest. Deep balls, he's beautiful. Beautiful deep ball, puts it where the receiver can catch it, outside shoulder, does everything. But in the combine, what I watched, a lot of his short and intermediate passes were sailing. Now with better coaching, he should be perfectly fine. But right now, it leaves me questioning if he's really ready. Now, again, do I think he's a top 10 quarterback just based on his athleticism? Yes. I mean, I've debated it. There were times I said no, he's lower because of the accuracy. But I have to be fair with his athleticism, with his size, with his mentality, with his desire, with his deep ball passing. If you can hone the accuracy in and put him in the right system, the sky's the limit with this kid. And again, I will say it again. I think he has the tools to eventually, if not already, be the number 1 player coming out of this draft, the 2023 draft. And that's better than Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, any other quarterback that's underneath him. I mean, I love Tanner McKee from Stanford, played on a bad team, but I see the tools there for a kid who can be a great pocket passer. But Anthony Richardson is just something different. It's just, I question his accuracy. That's it. That's really what it boils down to. Some people say he has the highest upside. Yeah, he does. He does. C.J. Stroud is another quarterback, smart, good passer, great anticipation. People are going to question the system because he's at Ohio State with a plethora of wide receivers, great offensive line, good running backs, tight ends. Okay, I get it. I understand. But the skill set is still there. You can't take that away. It has nothing to do with all those others. He's smart. He has good accuracy. He's not elite in terms of mobility, but he's good. He's good. He can get out of the pocket. He can put the ball downfield. I mean, I watched that Utah game, that Rose Bowl game against Utah. That first touchdown was getting a little pressure, rolled to his right, and just threw the ball. There was nobody in the area, but next thing you know, you see Marvin Harrison Jr. coming across the field and getting that pass for a touchdown. That's great anticipation. Plus, it was roughly about a 30-yard, somewhere in that range, 35-yard, right down the field. So that's accuracy, that's arm strength, that's anticipation, that's mobility. So that's why I say right now he's my number 1 quarterback, with Will Levis number 2. Will Levis just has a cannon of an arm. He's another one who has to work a little bit more on his accuracy, but he's better in accuracy than Richardson. He has good mobility, good size, So, 6'4", 230 pounds. So, he can move, he can do what he needs to do. He does run physically. When he throws the ball, it just pops out of his hands. So, he's one that, I'm definitely interested in. I have him as my number 2 quarterback. And then CJ Stroud is my I'm sorry. Bryce Young is my number 3 quarterback, followed by Anthony Richardson. Those are the top 4 quarterbacks that I have on my board. Now, there's another position that, everyone is talking about, and it's the wide receiver. There's been so many debates about it. Most have Quentin Johnson and Jordan Addison 1-2. Some will have Jackson Smith and Jigba up in there. Zay Flowers is another one. So those are the top 4 that are battling. I have Quentin Johnson on my board roughly in the mid-first, probably around 15 to 20, somewhere in that range. Jordan Addison, I don't have number 2. I actually have Zay Flowers number 2. And I know most will be surprised with that. Hey, I understand. You can criticize it. But Flowers, other than his size, he can play outside. He can play inside. He's a great route runner. He has good hands. He has excellent speed, great quick twitch ability. So he can move after the catch. Johnson, just with his size and, good speed at 6'3", 6'4", about 210 pounds, running in the 4.40, somewhere in there. So, he's definitely that number 1 receiver. Does have to work on his his route running. And in terms of his pass catching, work more on his hands and not allow it into his chest, because sometimes that'll cause you to drop passes. Jackson Smith and Jigba, while he's not elite in terms of his speed, he has good speed, but he's a good route runner. But he's he's better suited in the slot. You can put him on the outside. He can still do what he needs to do, but he's better suited there. So those are just some of the receivers I wanted to talk about quickly in reference to this NFL draft. I can go on and on about these players. There's so many different receivers that I like. Those who know me know I love A.T. Perry. I like Cedric Tillman, Xavier Hutchinson. These are receivers that, I definitely like, and I'm excited to see how they do. There's one that I'm really intrigued. Andre Iosivas from Princeton. The kid has elite speed, runs about a 4.4, 4.39, 6'3", 205. Now, people are going to question because he played in the Ivies, but if you sit down and watch his film, the kid can play. The kid is definitely a baller. So, he can go out there and play. So, again, there's so many different receivers. This draft, while it is not filled with the elite type of receivers, you might get more of those, in the future, but there's good receivers that can come into a lot of offensive systems, the right systems, and they can produce. And if with the proper development, you never know, they could end up being your number 1 receiver on a team. So definitely keep an eye out for some of those receivers. And one last one is Jonathan Mingo. I wasn't initially high on him until I saw his film, and it's like, wow. I don't know why he's rated so low with others. I have him a lot higher. Some boards have him in the mid-teens into the 20s, upper 20s. I have him closer into my top 10, maybe top 12, somewhere in that range. I'm going to reevaluate and redo a board later in the season. But it's very intriguing why he's, not rated higher in a lot of boards. So, I'm going to continue to dive into them, and I'll give you more insight on different players as we go before the draft in April. So, and for those of you who don't know, the draft is the end of April 27th to the 29th in Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm really excited about that, to see what's happening with the draft, see how my Giants and a lot of other teams are doing, and then the future of these players. Diving back into these players, they're breaking them down and giving you insight into who these players are as performers out there. So, with that being said, I just want to take a commercial break. First of all, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. I also want to thank my sponsors. Shadow Worlds Radio. Without them, I wouldn't have this opportunity, broadcasting through their platform. They're helping me along the way in terms of this. I really thank them. Wise Consulting Solutions, supporting me, and Get Out Travels. I thank them all for being a part of this. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a commercial break. With Shadow Worlds Radio, it's the feel-good experience that connects the community and reflects life. With Shadow Worlds, you're able to listen to great music. You can find us out in the community, positively impacting lives, addressing important social issues which affect our communities, and bringing an interactive approach to life, love, sports, and family. If you're looking for great DJ service, you can contact Shadow Worlds. To listen to powerful talk radio, tune into the Unconcealed Talk Show, where it's about making strong and positive moves. For great sports talk, check out Heart of the City, where passion for New York sports kicks it to another level. To take it back in the days, listen to Daz Smith and The Retro Show, where Daz brings you classic 80s music from down under. Good day, mate. Shadow Worlds Radio is bringing you everything you're looking for from an online radio and media outlet. To visit Shadow Worlds, check out our website, www.shadowworlds.com, or Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Shadow Worlds Radio. And Shadow Worlds is spelled SHADOWWORLDZ. That's Shadow Worlds with a Z. Now, getting back into the next phase of the show, I'm going to transition over to the NBA. That gave you a little bit of taste of the NFL, but now it's time to move on to the games that are being played now. Now, last week, I took a look at, there were some pretty exciting games. I say games of the week. Last Sunday, you had Brooklyn Nets at the Denver Nuggets. They actually beat Denver 122-120. The other one was the New York Knicks versus the Los Angeles Lakers, 112-108. Those were games that were pretty exciting on Sunday. Looking at Monday, the exciting game for me was Utah at Miami and Houston beating Boston. Boston lost to Houston 111-109. Now the game was played in Houston, but the leading scorer was Jalen Green for Houston, but Jaylen Brown for Boston. He had 43 points while Green had 28 points. Now with Miami beat Utah 119-115. Jimmy Butler was the leading scorer with 24 points while Lauri Markkanen had 38 points. Now those were some pretty exciting games. Tuesday, when you take a look at those the games there, the one exciting game that I thought it surprised me more than anything, and that's because I'm a Knicks fan, was the New York Knicks beating Portland in Portland. The Knicks were down initially, but they fought back and beat Portland 123-107, where Dame Lillard had 38 points, but Emmanuel Quickley was the reason why the Knicks won that game with 26 points. The Knicks, for everything that they get criticized for, and I've criticized them for so many years, from ownership to management to coaching, but they're playing very well this year. So it's definitely a great surprise, but it's good as a Knicks fan to see that. The other game that was a game of the week on Wednesday. Some will not say it, but for me, it was Dallas visiting San Antonio, and that game went to overtime. Dallas came out on top 137-128. Keldon Johnson led San Antonio with 27 points, but Dallas was led by Christian Woods with 28 points. So that was a pretty exciting game there. And now I'm going to skip down to Saturday, because the game of the week there, again, it's going to be another New York. It's going to be the Denver Nuggets losing to the New York Knicks 116-110. I mean, that was a return of Jalen Brunson, who was out with injury, but he came back to lead the Knicks with 24 points, while Jamal Murray led Denver with 25 points. For me, those were the game of the weeks. I mean, I love basketball. It's exciting. I love what I'm seeing from a lot of the teams, especially my Knicks. Now, I criticize my Knicks. There's probably going to be times you hear me criticize the Knicks, but they've been playing very well. Kudos to Coach Tom Thibodeau, the way he's coaching, using the players. Jalen Brunson has been a great addition to the Knicks. So it's what I definitely appreciate in terms of looking at the Knicks and seeing how they're playing. I mean, now if we take a look at the standings, out west, like I said before, the Rockets they had one of the game of the weeks. They're in last place out west. They're in the second position with the second worst record in the league. Then you have San Antonio, Portland, the Pelicans, and the Lakers all in the bottom. Now they're they're right outside the play-in. The Lakers are right outside Pelicans, and Portland is hovering about 3 games out. And then in the play-in, you have Utah, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Golden State. Now Golden State, they're playing 500 ball, and that to me is because they're phenomenal at home. They play great basketball at home, but they're not good on the road. So that leaves me wondering, how effective are you going to be? Right now, they're in 7. It's Golden State at 7, Oklahoma City at 8, Minnesota, and then Utah. They would have to host Utah, so there's a great opportunity. But after that, if they win, they're going on the road. So more than likely, they would play the way they're positioned, probably Sacramento. Now, finishing out the standings out west, you have the Dallas Mavericks at 6, the Clippers at 5, the Suns at 4, the Grizzlies at 3, the Kings at 2, and the Nuggets at 1. I'm watching the Grizzlies because right now they're dealing with a great deal. We've all heard the story about Ja Morant and the gun situation. And first of all, kudos to him for stepping up and taking responsibility for his actions. In this day and age, you see so many, stand out and publicly, come out and stand up and then go out and get help and say, I need help. Many will just try and let it die down and move on with their lives. This is a man who, he knows that he made a mistake. He understands the significance of that. And now he's getting the help. And he's the type of person that if I'm a coach, I want to coach him. You know what? You made your mistake. So what? You know what? You took accountability and you want to get better. You're also going to help everyone around you get better. That's the type of leader that you need, and that's the type of leader that the Grizzlies need. Now, right now, they're tied with Sacramento, but Sacramento has the advantage over them. But, much longer? My understanding is Morant will be back probably by Tuesday or sometime this week. Once he gets into shape, and gets back, can he help push Memphis? And if he does, is that the motivation? Could he motivate that team to really make a strong run come playoff time? So they're my sleeper out west. Everyone will have their different, some will talk about the Suns, with Kevin Durant out there, and I understand it. Some will wonder about the Warriors. Will they kick it in? Are they just cruising? But my sleeper is the Grizzlies. When they get Ja Morant back, will he come back with that fire? And is he going to be driven to really help elevate this program, organization, as we wind down to the playoffs? Because, pretty much, that's where we are right now. In the East, you have the Detroit Pistons coming in last place in the East, Charlotte, Orlando, the Wizards, and the Pacers. The Wizards and the Pacers are just literally right there. They're pretty much a game and a half out of the last play-in spot. Orlando is about 4.5, but to me, they're fading. When you look at the play-in, you have Chicago at 10, Toronto at 9, Atlanta at 8, and Miami at 7. Now, to me, the key is Miami, because Miami plays Brooklyn and New York. They play Brooklyn Nets twice and the Knicks once, and those teams are right in front of them. Now, with the Knicks, the Knicks have the 2-1 edge over them. So if they win that other game, then the Knicks will have the season series against them head-to-head. Brooklyn, I believe they're tied, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, I think they played one game. So I think Brooklyn has the one game, but Miami has the opportunity to catch them. They're a game and a half behind Brooklyn. So that's going to be intriguing. Now, the Nets are 6, the Knicks are 5, the Cavaliers are 4, Boston is 3, Philly is 2, and Milwaukee is 1. Now, the Philly and Boston is intriguing because for the longest while, the Celtics were number 2, but now things have changed. There's things going on out there that I'm really wondering what's happening. But with Philly overtaking them, you know, technically they're tied. They're both 2 games behind Milwaukee, but the Philly has less losses, so they're in that position. Now, in terms of 4 or 5, the Knicks need to catch, because they're 2.5 behind Cleveland. They have 1 game that they're playing, but they have to catch them to get the 4 spot. Otherwise, it's going to be interesting, especially if they play them and the Donovan Mitchell situation, because everyone knew Donovan Mitchell wanted to come here. The Knicks wanted him, and it was a great opportunity. But you know, Utah wanted more than the Knicks were willing to give, and then they traded him to Cleveland. So you know, it's going to be interesting there to see, you know, if they play them in the playoffs, what's going to happen. You know, hopefully the Knicks will come through and they'll do what they need to do to move on. They have the opportunity. The way they're playing right now, that would be a good matchup. But Cleveland is good. You know, they have a good backcourt. They have good front court players. They have good depth on the bench. So, you know, it's not a team that you can sit back and just say, oh, the Knicks could go through and just walk through them. It's going to be a fight. It could easily go 7 games. The Celtics end up playing probably Brooklyn the way it looks right now. The Nets have already beaten them, and they've beaten them in Brooklyn. So they would psychologically feel like they can compete with them. You know, the Sixers playing Miami is the way it stands. That would be a tough, physical, grinded out type of a playoff game. But I think the Sixers could come out because, to me, they have probably one of the, if not the best player in the league in Joel Embiid. I said it before, but Djokovic started stepping up. But, you know, right now they're not. The Nuggets have been, you know, winning. I think they won. I think they've won 2 out of 6. I believe that's where it is in the last 6 games, because they won today against Brooklyn. So it's interesting in terms of, you know, the Sixers playing Miami, and then right now Atlanta would play Milwaukee. But you know, that could either go Atlanta or Toronto. I think, you know, Toronto might be a better matchup because of their size and their length, so they could match up to Milwaukee there. So, you know, I am wondering, you know, in that regard, how it would turn out. But it's really interesting. So here we go. So that's how it breaks down. Now, you know, going back to the West, you know, if it was played out right now, the Nuggets will play Oklahoma City, the Warriors will play the Kings, the Grizzlies play the Mavericks, the Suns and the Clippers play each other. I do like that Suns-Clippers matchup, you know, especially if they get KD back, and KD can round it to 4. Kevin Durant, for everything that people say, all the animosity they feel towards him, when he's on, there's nobody who can stop him. And that's the thing that, you know, if they get all their players, their top 4, they probably, to me, have the best top 4 out of everyone. Now, you do need your depth, don't get me wrong. You know, you do need other players to step up. But alone right there, now the Clippers, you know, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George alone, and then Marquise Morris, you know, they have those mid-range, those 3-and-D type players who, you know, who can step it up and take over the game. But, you know, who's going to stop Kevin Durant if he's rocking 40, 50 points, you know, and then, you know, it's just their offenses can be prolific. But again, depends on KD coming back and, you know, if he's healthy. So these playoffs, they're starting to become interesting to me. I'm really taking a look at these last few games. I think most teams have roughly maybe 6. Let me double check with the Knicks. I think the Knicks have a total of 8 games left. We have the Knicks close out with, here we go. Minnesota, Miami, Orlando, Houston. For Miami again, 5. Cleveland, 6. Washington, 7. Indiana, 8. New Orleans, 9. So they have 10 games. So most teams, like I said, they're in that 10 to 12 game range. So it's going to be interesting as we close out the season. Right now the Knicks are 42 and 32. Milwaukee is 50 and 20. Philadelphia is 48 and 22. Boston is 49 and 23. Cleveland is 45 and 28, and the Nets are 39 and 32. I'm just going to do the top 6 on each. And then Denver out west is 48 and 24. Sacramento is 43 and 27. Memphis is 43 and 27. Phoenix is 38 and 33. The Clippers are 37 and 34, and Dallas is 36 and 35. So as you see the makeup there, it's very interesting. It's very exciting, and I'm really excited to see how things play out. For my Knicks, I ain't gonna lie to you. I want Cleveland. I do. I want Cleveland. One, because you got Spider. You got Spider Mitchell. So, I live under the mentality I want best. So, that'll be the first steps, and then you move on from there. Can the Knicks match up? I mean, they've already proven with Boston how they can compete with them and even beat them. So Brooklyn too. Brooklyn is the type of team that some people, because they lost Durant and Kyrie Irving, they're not good. Yes, they are good. They are talented. Miles Bridges is a good player. Don't sleep on him. They have a boatload of players down there. Maybe they have a cluster of players who, pretty similar, 3 balls, shooters. You don't have a lot of low post depth. So that's a concern with them. But they are a good team, and they will give the upper teams a fight. Boston, if they can get things together, they have the most depth, and they have the ability to really compete. Milwaukee, you're going to talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah, sorry about that. The Greek freak. I'll just leave it right there at that. But, he's just an unstoppable force, especially once he starts getting the rock and starts driving out in the lane. Literally, it looks like he's just taking 2 steps from the 3-point line. I'm exaggerating, but it looks like he's taking 3 steps and just soaring right to the rim. And they have good players. They spread out the floor, and then they play defense. Those guys play defense. I mean, they have good size, length. They can, and Drew Holiday at point guard, as his on-ball defense. They're a team that, they're going to give you problems. Milwaukee, with Harden and Embiid, you do have other players on there, but when those two are on, they're tough. They really are tough. So this is going to be a great playoff year. I'm excited for it, and I'm just ready to keep it going. So, and see where things go from there. So hopefully it's something that my Knicks can, hey, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Knicks fan, but and on the back end, I'm want to watch, the play-in. I want to see what happens with the Lakers and Utah. I mean, Lakers, Utah, and Timberwolves actually. Especially if LeBron James, what's happening with him. If he comes back and he can get into form, can they make a strong run? I doubt it, but I mean, I'm not gonna sleep on it. They get in there at 9, 10. If they're playing at 9, they would end up playing probably Oklahoma the way it's positioned right now. Can they compete with them? Does Oklahoma have anybody to stop LeBron and Anthony Davis when those two are on? They did bring in some good pieces, so they did construct things, around them after years of not being constructed properly. So I find it very interesting and exciting, like I said, with the Lakers. I mean, I'm hoping they can make a push for it. Some are going to talk about the Pelicans because of Zion Williamson, but he's been injured too much. I love the kid. I love his game, but he's not on the court. So that's my concern with him. Get him on the court. If you can get him on the court, then great. Let's see what he can do. I don't think there's many in this league that can stop him, but you got to get him on the court, and that's what it boils down to. So, it's interesting. So, but that's the NBA. That's the playoffs. That's what I have right there. So, you let me know what you think. just reach out to me. You can catch me via email, or you can go to my YouTube page. It's Coach Ed Gladney's Amazing World of Sports, and that's Ed with 2 D's, EDD. But if you wanted to reach out to me and talk to me about anything, you can catch me there, or you can hit me on Twitter, Coach Ed G. Just look me up on Twitter, Ed Gladney, or one of the two. You can pull me up. You can send me a message. I'd love to interact with everyone there. So, definitely do that. Let me know your thoughts, because I love when people give me their thoughts and we can have good open debates, or conversations, whatever it is. So, let me know what you think. Who's your favorite team? Who do you want me to talk to you about? So, just went into a little bit of the NBA, and we're going to now transition a little bit into baseball. I'm not going to get too deep into it, because it's just spring ball, but, right now, the team that I'm watching the most is New York Mets. No, I'm not a Mets fan. I'm actually a Yankees fan, but I am concerned about the Nets with the injuries and some of the things that are happening. My Yankees have those too with our starting pitching staff, but, it's interesting to see what's happening. Just heard a report earlier today that one of the players for the Houston Astros, he's going to be out for a while. So Jose Altuve, I think he has a broken hand or a fractured hand, something to that effect. But it's going to be interesting this playoff season, especially, to start. What are my Yankees going to do? And the other teams, the AL East has always been tough. The NL East for the Mets is going to be tough, with Atlanta there, with the Phillies there. That's another team that I love to watch, the Phillies. So, it's going to be a very competitive, when you go out west, in the NL West, the Padres, they've made so many different changes, lineups, additions, so how are they going to, line up, and then when you go into the central parts of the leagues, it's what's going to happen with St. Louis, what's going to happen with the Chicago White Sox, the Chicago's Cubs, what's out west, the Seattle Mariners. I can sit down and we can look at all these teams, but spring training, to me it's like, okay, that's just preseason. Let them get warmed up. Heck, my Yankees are 9-14. They're near the bottom. But can they reshape themselves? Always playing in the AL East. The hated Boston Red Sox. Toronto Blue Jays, the Orioles, the Tampa Bay Rays. It's going to be tough for the Yankees. Out in the East. So again, it's just a start. I'll be talking more about that as the season goes along. So and we'll dive into that a whole lot more in reference to that. So just wanted to touch on that real quickly, just for a minute or two, and get some insight into that before we move on to the next phase. And the next phase is something that's near and dear to me. I've done different aspects of. I've talked about it. I've done shows. It's called Women in Sports. For those who don't know, on my regular YouTube channel, you can find it there. I've talked about different women in sports. Florence Griffin Joyner, Wilma Rudolph. So many different. And I'm going to bring that back up, and I'm going to continue at there as well as here, because women in sports is very important to me. As a father, I have 3 daughters. I have a granddaughter. I see the importance of and the contributions of women in sports, each and every day. I love the WNBA. I love watching it. I probably love watching it more than the NBA because of the fundamentals and the way the game is played for the women. They can hit the threes, but they can attack the rim. They play good defense. They spread it out. They move the ball a lot more. They're not always trying to dunk the ball, doing lobs and things of that nature. Not taking away from that. Not saying I don't like that aspect of the sport. I do, but in the same token, it just changes the dynamics. And not only should the basketball be about elevation, but it should be about the width and movement. So I'll be going into that and diving into that. One of the things that in reference to that is Something that I'm definitely like seeing is, and I hope the sports really gets into that and really, spreads it out. It's, we always see that the men have their name brand, with whatever sneakers, clothing line, you have Air Jordans, you have your Kobe's, rest in peace Kobe, LeBron's, all these players, they have their name brand sneakers. Well, guess what? Ladies are getting into it. You have the Sabrina Ionescu and the Breanna Stewart. Breanna Stewart is, with Puma, while Sabrina is with Nike. So I like that. I've taken a look at some of them. I don't know if they're, if they're geared for men, if it's just that. There's some designs that I do like. And I've thought to myself, maybe I should just get them just because. I mean, I don't care, who it is. I just like the designs and who it is. I mean, who it's coming from, so, I find that it's very important and impactful, because it also helps, show young girls in the future, you can achieve this, you can, be contributors, and you can end up having your own sneaker. I mean, it's important, that women feel that they're equally treated in sports or respected in sports, just like the men are. And I like seeing stuff like this, and it's not because I'm a Liberty fan. Please, I love Candace Parker. I've always loved her. She's not a Liberty fan. I mean, a Liberty player. So, I just like seeing things like that coming from the women. It's important, in sports that we, include women in that regard. So, pardon me. So you'll be seeing and hearing me talk more about, not just the WNBA, but, women's soccer. I'm looking into hockey. I'm not a big hockey fan, but, I'm learning and diving into that, because it's important. Some of you are the followers are into that. So, I want to bring you the coaching perspective from that, not just, just the scores and, talk about the exciting highlights, but I want to dive into that. How the sport is played and so on and so forth. Things like that are extremely important in sports in itself, because for me, sports is not just about the game itself. It's about giving you and allowing you to use the skills and the tools that you develop from the game to use in life. And the women do that as well. Competition, teamwork, commitment, working hard, all of that is important. Leadership, it's important that, people understand that. Young kids, they understand that, they learn that, and they include that in their daily aspects of improving their game. So, getting back to the main point of, players getting shoe deals, it's great. It's great. I love it. So, hopefully I'm looking to see more and more. And, while I've never been a sneaker head, but, there's been times that if it's affordable and something that I like, I've had a pair of here or there, not $100 pair. I'm gonna be honest with you there. That's not me. That's not Coach Ed. He's not going to go out and spend $100 on a pair of sneakers. But, if it's something that's nice and it's comfortable and I can put it on, because I got big feet. That's the other thing. Coach Ed is, also a big man. So, putting on, comfortable sneakers is a good thing. And for you, you want to find, a pair of sneakers that, fits your style, whatever it is, whether it's comfortability, whether it's the style, the flair, or if it's just a player who it is. Having women who have sneakers, to add to wardrobes, it's a great thing. So, I definitely appreciate that. Kudos to Nike, kudos to Puma, kudos to the WNBA, and in some regards the NBA, because they're attached to that. So, kudos to everyone. And, hopefully, if you have young girls who are getting into sport, they can develop and, they can eventually, capitalize on that themselves. So, that's my spiel right there, or a little touch on women in sports. We'll dive more into that a little bit later. So now the thing that I want to talk about now is March Madness, college basketball, both men's and women's. please understand we're going to be spending some time here on that. The first thing I want to say is initially I didn't dive into it. Normally I do one of the brackets, but this year I didn't do one. And the reason why I didn't do one is because one of my favorite teams was not a part of it this year. So, hey, I know that's, kind of a little bang bang spoiled type of attitude. It wasn't that. It was just mentally, it was just disappointing. One of my teams didn't make the NCAAs, and they actually went into the NIT and lost in the first round, and that's Rutgers. So anyone knows me knows I'm a big Scarlet Knight fan. But I do like basketball, and taking a look at it, I just found it interesting and exciting. It did lift me up seeing some of the games, seeing the results of the game. Some major upsets. First one we're going to talk about is Furman beating Virginia 68-67. I will be honest, if I had a bracket, I would have picked Virginia over Furman, just because it's Virginia, their former national championship program. They play in the ACC, which is a good basketball program. But, when I looked at the stats, I broke it down. Furman shot 39.3% from field goal, while Virginia was 44.4%. But I think the biggest factor was the three-pointers. Furman was 10 of 28 for 37.7%, while Virginia was 2 of 12 for 16.7%. That right there tells me everything I need to know. Free throws, it was 73.7% to 77.3%. So, it's about the same. Rebounds were, 31 for Furman, 39 for Virginia. So again, everything was the same. The biggest difference to me in not seeing the game was 3-point shooting. If Virginia even hits 1 to 2 more, they win that game. Just one, and they at least tie that game. They win that game, because that would have added 3 points to their total, and they would win by 2 points. So that's the biggest factor for me in terms of that game. When you sit down, you break it down. Furman's leading scorer, let's take a look here, was Jalen Slauson. Played 38 minutes, had 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 19 points. Virginia, their leading scorer was Caden Cedric. I don't know if it's Cedric Caden or Caden Cedric. No, it's Caden Cedric. I'm sorry. He played 29 minutes, 13 rebounds, and 15 points. So that right there is the biggest factor in that game right there, which is why they lost. Virginia lost to Furman. The other upset was Princeton of Arizona. Princeton, Jersey team. They won 59-55. Princeton was a 15 seed, while Arizona was a 2nd seed. So that was pretty interesting there. Princeton was led by Tosan Edvo. I'm not going to say his name. I'm going to ruin his name. I'll try though. Evbu Mowan. He played 36 minutes, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 15 points. Wow, that's hard to say, but hey. Arizona was led by Azuolas Tubelis, 37 minutes, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, and 22 points. So when we sit here and look at the stat line, Princeton shot 40.6%, while Arizona was 42.1%. Princeton was 16% in 3 points, while Arizona was 18.8%. Free throw. Princeton was 60%, while Arizona was 57.1%. Rebounds were pretty even, 38 for Princeton, 37 for Arizona. So came down to Princeton was 26 of 64 in terms of shooting, while Arizona was 24 of 57. That's pretty much where it was lost for them. So, that's the big factor. Now, the biggest upset, and I know everyone has seen and probably heard about it, being a Rutgers Scarlet Knight, I'm familiar with them. But the biggest one for me was FDU beating Purdue 63-58. FDU won in the play-in, and they came in as a 16th seed, but then they went on to beat Purdue. I mean, that's big in itself right there. My understanding, FDU didn't have anyone over 6'7", 6'8". Purdue, they have big boys, led by Zach Edey. Zach Edey is 7'4", and he's about 290 pounds. So that in itself, tells you everything. I mean, he led Purdue 36 minutes, 15 rebounds, 1 assist, 21 points. FDU was led by Sean Moore, 28 minutes, 5 rebounds, 19 points. I mean, when we break down the stats, FDU shot 38.7% from the field goal, while Purdue was 35.8%. Three-point shooters, FDU was 30.4%, while Purdue was 19.2%. Free throws was pretty even, 80% to 78.9%. Purdue out-rebounded them 33 to 42. So the biggest thing was their field goal percentage. I mean, FDU pretty much looks like he played sound, tough defense, and pretty much boxed in, let Edey do what he needs to do, and then pretty much controlled everyone else from there. So, but that right there is the biggest upset in terms of the NCAA. Now, right now, the way things stand, they're going into the second round. If we take a look at the second round, yesterday Alabama beat Maryland, so they moved on till next Friday in the Sweet 16. Furman lost to San Diego State 75-52. So Alabama will be playing San Diego State on the Sweet 16. Now Princeton also won again. They won yesterday, beating Missouri as the number 15 seed. They beat the number 7 seed, and they beat them 78-63. So they're waiting for the winner of the Creighton-Baylor game. That game is being played, currently being played. Creighton is winning right now 39-29 at halftime. The other game is, that's done there. Okay. You also have now FDU playing Florida Atlantic, and right now in the first quarter, they're down 11-3. So, Florida Atlantic is not taking them lightly. But whoever wins that game is going to face Tennessee, because Tennessee defeated Duke yesterday 65-52. So that's going to be interesting, in itself right there. Tennessee was 25-10, so in the SEC, playing SEC competition. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. Earlier today, Kansas beat Kentucky 75-69. So they're moving on to the Sweet 16. Kansas State was led by Marquise Noel, 27 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, and 2 rebounds. Kentucky was led by Oscar Twaby, 25 points, 18 rebounds, and 1 assist. But that's their season. They're done. Kansas State is moving on, and they're waiting to win. Actually, it's a final now. Michigan State beat Marquette 69-57. So Michigan State will be playing Kansas State on Thursday in the Sweet 16. Now for Michigan State, they were led by Tyson Walker. Good player, saw him play, 23 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Marquette was led by Oliver Maxence Prosper, 16 points, 4 rebounds. But their season is over with, and then now it's going to be Kansas State versus Michigan State. In the other bracket, you've had Pittsburgh, who won a play-in game against Mississippi State. They ended up beating Iowa State. They beat Iowa State 59-41. And now they just played today Xavier, and they lost to Xavier 84-73. In the other bracket, Texas beat Penn State yesterday. So now it's a matchup of number 2 versus 3, Texas, number 2, Xavier, number 3. In the next bracket, You had yesterday Houston, number 1 seed, beating Auburn 81-64. So they're waiting the winner of the Indiana Miami of Florida. That's being played later tonight. You also had UCLA beat Northwestern yesterday, 68-63. So they're waiting the winner of the Gonzaga TCU. So there's some pretty good matchups. I'm definitely intrigued by the Gonzaga TCU matchup. Gonzaga does play some pretty good ball, but TCU has been playing fairly well this year, 22-12 overall. So, I mean, I've been hearing and seeing some of their highlights, and they've had some great wins this year. So, I'm intrigued to see them. And in the final bracket, another upset yesterday. Number 1 Kansas went down to Arkansas 71-72. Arkansas was led by Devontae Davis, 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 assist. And Kansas was led by Jalen Whistling, 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist. When I break it down, Arkansas 41.4 field goal percent shooting, while Kansas was at 48%. The biggest difference looks like it came down to free throw shooting was pretty steady, 80.8 to 72%. So yeah, that's a big difference there. And 3-point shooting, Arkansas was at 20%, while Kansas was at 38.5. So Arkansas did out rebound them 36-29. So that's also a contributing factor. So that leads to that 1-point differential. So, but unfortunately, Kansas didn't make it. So that's another number 1 going home. And from my understanding, there are no more perfect brackets. With all the upsets, with FDU, Princeton, upsetting teams, Furman, like I said, Pittsburgh, you take a look at this, and now you had Arkansas beating Kansas, and Arkansas will be taking on UConn because UConn beat St. Mary's of California 70-55. So it's going to be interesting in that game too on Thursday. They play Thursday, so I'm definitely going to be checking out some of the games now because it's an exciting play right now. I do love college basketball. It's just something about watching those guys. If I was to pick right now, say Alabama, San Diego State, I probably would be going with Alabama. They've been, the most steady this year. They are pretty much the number 1 team in the country. Princeton and Creighton, is Princeton's luck going to run out? That's all I can say. It leaves me wondering, is their luck going to run out, especially going up against a team like Creighton, if that's who they end up playing. I mean, Creighton is led by Ryan Nembhard right now with 11 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. But Baylor does have some big playability. Their championship tested, so they won before. So it's going to be interesting to see. FDU, Florida Atlantic. Let me see, it's 11-5 now. So it's still early there, but and also I'm interested in Kansas State and Michigan State. I think that's going to be a really good one there too. A 6-7 matchup in terms of the bracket. So that's pretty much it in terms of the NCAA men's division. Now I'm going to get into the women's. The women's form, I think they had a couple of upsets. South Carolina won their first 2 matchups. There was no doubting that. Oklahoma in the Greensville, ended up beating Portland. So now they're moving on because UCLA, and they're going to be playing UCLA later on to tomorrow. They play tomorrow night around 10 o'clock. Mississippi State, won the first match, but then they lost in the second round. Notre Dame won the other matchup, and that's who beat Mississippi State. And then the other final part of that bracket, Arizona and Maryland were the 2 teams that advanced to the second round, with Maryland moving on to play Notre Dame. That's going to be a very interesting matchup. Maryland has a player that I've watched for years, to be honest with you. Diamond Miller is a player that I've always known about. I've known about her going all the way back to her middle school days, because when I was a substitute teacher and living in Somerset, I used to see her. I used to, be around, sat in on a class or two with her, being a sub, but she's just that skilled. She's that type of player, always knew it. So I'm intrigued to see how she continues to develop. So, yeah, they won. So they'll be playing Notre Dame on the 25th. So, on the other side, you have Indiana, who is number one. They won their first, and they're playing tomorrow night against Miami of Florida, who won against Oklahoma State. You have Florida Gulf Coast, who had an upset. They beat the 5th seed Washington State. Villanova won the other one, so they'll be playing each other tomorrow. Right now, you have Michigan won their first round, so they're playing LSU. Right now, they're down to LSU 30-15. And in the other one, you had Princeton, who upset NC State, and they're playing Utah. And right now, they're down by 7, 40-30. So that's how the women's bracket. That's the Greensville 1 and 2, and the Seattle division. So out west, you have Stanford, who beat Sacred Heart, and then Ole Miss, who beat Gonzaga. So they play each other later today, around 9:30 tonight. You had Louisville over Drake, Texas over East Carolina. That's going to be a good one. So they play each other tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Now, I know about Louisville. I've watched them. So, they have a great head coach, and they usually play a lot of good fundamental basketball. In the other games, you had Colorado over Minnesota State and Duke over Iona. So they'll be playing each other tomorrow night. And then you had Georgia over Florida State. That was an upset. And Iowa over Southeastern. And then Georgia, lost to Iowa. So Iowa is moving on, and they're waiting their winner. These are the first 4. Okay. And then in the last bracket, you had Virginia Tech, who beat Chattanooga, and South Dakota State, who beat Southern California, a slight upset. Virginia Tech won that, so now they're moving on to the next round. And then you had Toledo, who upset Iowa State. I remember that one. And Tennessee over St. Louis. So those two are playing each other tomorrow, 6 o'clock. And then you had North Carolina over St. John's, Ohio State over James Madison. Those two play tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Baylor beat Alabama, and UConn beat Vermont. And those two play tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. So that's the women's bracket. Very interesting. If I was to go through and pick these, of course, I'm going to take South Carolina over either Oklahoma or UCLA. South Carolina is just that good. Seriously, they're the best team in all of women's basketball. If they play smart and they play together and they have the eventual number 1 overall pick, they play the way they're capable of playing, no one's going to beat them. I'll be honest with you. No one's going to beat them. Next is Notre Dame, Maryland. That one is going to be tough. But if Diamond plays the way she's capable, I think she's going to help pull that team out. And they're going to end up winning. And they'll probably move on to play South Carolina, which is going to be a tough one. Out in the other Greensville, too, I'll take Indiana over Miami. Indiana is just good. They have a deep team. They have a very deep team, and they have players who can shoot for range, but also they're fundamentally sound. In Florida Gulf Coast over Villanova, I'm not really familiar with Florida Gulf Coast. So if I had to hedge my bet, I'm just going to take Villanova. And the way it's going, LSU is just totally containing and controlling Michigan at the half. So, probably going to stay the same way. And let's see what's up with Princeton and Utah. They're still in the third, so it's 41-33. So, it's pretty much staying the same there. So if I had to pick there, if LSU ended up playing Utah, I'm going to pick LSU to beat Michigan and Utah to beat Princeton. So, and if Indiana played Villanova, I take Indiana. and LSU and Utah. Utah has just been a surprise for me this year. So I'm going to stick with them the way they're playing. Out of Stanford, Ole Miss, I'm taking Stanford. Louisville and Texas, I'm actually taking Louisville, and I think Stanford can come out of that one. Colorado, Duke, going to take Duke, and Duke, Iowa, going with Iowa. They're another fundamentally sound team. If I take Virginia Tech and they end up playing Tennessee, I'm actually taking Tennessee. I just think Tennessee is just too tested, playing in that tough SEC. North Carolina, Ohio State. Got to go with North Carolina. I know Ohio State is good. They're probably, if not the second best team in the Big Ten, but it's just something about that Carolina, the way they play. And then UConn, I'm taking UConn. And if UConn is playing Carolina, I got UConn going up against Tennessee. So, that's pretty much how I have it in terms of the women's bracket. It's very interesting. I definitely appreciate that. So, but right now I'm going to take a quick commercial break for you, and we're going to play a commercial from Wise Consulting. So, be right back.
Having credit issues? Tired of getting denied for a car, a loan, or house? Let Wise Consulting Solutions help you improve your scores and get you back on track. Sign up and schedule a free consultation and credit analysis today.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that from Wise Consultation. So, getting back into the March Madness, I always found that very interesting with the March Madness. Initially, I said, I wasn't into it. I didn't do a bracket because of Rutgers. I think I had a mental lapse like they did because of the big disappointment. But that's the beauty of all of this with the men's and women's. You watch these kids go all year round. You see them. You're invested in them too. The ups, the downs. Players getting injuries. You're hearing their stories. Whether you went to the school, they're in your state, whatever the reason, you find that attachment. But then when they get into this part of the year, March Madness is probably for me the most exciting. In terms of men's and women's basketball. I mean, they really get after it, and they really, really play, but they pour their hearts and souls into it. That's why when you see these kids crying afterwards, it's not a sign of weakness. It just shows to me that they're so passionate about the game that they play. And that's the beauty of it. They're invested. They love it. They love their teammates. They love their coaches. They're playing for each other. I can tell you from experience, having coached a lot of different guys and kids, you do get invested in them. And it does hurt when, you don't raise the trophy in a sense, if you're not the last one standing, So I definitely appreciate the college sports and the passion that I see with a lot of these kids, in it. So I find it very intriguing. I appreciate it, not just intriguing. I appreciate it a whole lot more. And I hope you guys start to, understand and get into that and appreciate, what this is, what these kids are doing for, sports in itself, and then what they're learning from these schools and from the sport itself, because it gives them so much. It gives them such important life skills. That's very important, for them as they develop and then as they move on within their life, no matter which way they go. So whether it's to the pros or just jumping into their career. So, I hope you guys start to appreciate a lot of these kids, for what they bring to the table and what they do for college sports as a whole. So, thanks for listening to me there. So the next phase I want to talk about is college realignment. Now, there's been so much going on in terms of college alignment. first you had Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC. They worked out a deal to eventually move to the SEC next year at the end of this season. So in the start of 2024, they'll be playing in the SEC. And that's good for them in terms of economics. It's going to step up the level of competition. They're going to now play the Alabamas, the Auburns, the LSUs, the Georgias on a regular basis now. And we're going to see, Oklahoma has, been considered one of the elite programs for a little while because of where they played in the Big 12. Well, now we're really going to see consistently, are you going to be considered a big boy, or, are you going to fall into the middle of the pack there? Same thing with Texas. But I think what it also will do, it will give them the opportunity to recruit a better level of talent. That's important, because now you're going to open up opportunities, to improve your organization. But what I like most of all, you're going to give other kids opportunities to compete at a higher level. These kids want to compete, and that's what's important. They really want to compete. And that's the one thing, like we talk about college realignment. I've done it before. We talk about the money that, being thrown around, but that's another thing. You're giving kids who want to compete at the highest level an opportunity to compete at a high level. So instead of, going to a Big 12 and, maybe you play in the championship series, maybe you don't, but you go to the SEC, you're going to be playing top level competition week in and week out. And I really like that. I'm a coach. I want to coach like that. I want to give my kids the opportunity to coach, to compete at the highest level. And I really like that for the Sooners. The other thing was, the Big Ten. The Big Ten going out west and securing USC and UCLA. And, you have argues and concerns about, travel and, out of those two, who's going to be close. The next closest school is Nebraska, which is, XYZ amount of miles away. It's not like it's the next state. You have to travel over 3-4 states to get to your next competition, outside of, each other. So I understand that. But, we fans, we want to see games like that. We want to see big conferences. We want to see the big names. We want our schools to be in those conferences so we can possibly develop and get kids to come into, our respective universities. So it's very interesting in reference to what's happening to the other schools and other conferences. If you look at the Big 12, they're bringing in the BYU Cougars. Now, BYU has been an independent, so, they've been independent since 2011. So, they're not impacting another conference to go here. They're just not being an independent. So you at least have a set schedule within the conference, and then you can do your out of conference, and they're a good program. They're tough. They always play, a good brand of football. Their head coach is a good head coach, Kalani Sitake. He has them playing the typical BYU brand of football, which is tough, minded, but, it stays true. The other team coming in is one of the nationally ranked programs, is the Cincinnati Bearcats. They were in the American Athletic Conference last year. And, they've been pretty much leading it, except for last year. Tulane won it. But the year before that, they were undefeated and went to the Final Four. They played in the playoffs. So, they're coming in as a playoff caliber program as long as they continue to bring in the type of recruits. And I think playing within the Big 12 will help them, because the Big 12 does have a better level of competition than the AAC. And the AAC may argue that, but that's the truth. And you're losing a lot of your top level programs to the Big 12. So that's the reason why I say this. The other one that's going there is Houston, which is also from the American Athletic. Houston has always won 12 or more games in the past few years. I think last year, in 2021 they won 12 games. So they're always in a bowl game. They have a good head coach in Dana Holgorsen. So, they're going to be a tough team. They're going to compete, and they're going to bring something to the Big 12. So the Big 12, while it may not be at the level of caliber of the SEC and the Big 10, but they're the third best conference within college football. So, and I definitely think that they're going to be able to surprise some teams from time to time. And then you'll have the Central Florida University of Central Florida Knights. They're also coming over from the American Athletic. They've been up and down. They've had good seasons where they went undefeated. Last year they were a good team, but they still have some building to do. They've gone 0-10 within wins in a 4-year span twice. They're the largest college in the U.S. according to student enrollment, with 70,000 students. Did not know that. So that's interesting. So that's the Big 12. That's the thing they're adding to it. So they went from 12 down to 10, but they're bringing in 4. So now they're going to be at 14. In terms of the AAC, I mean, they're bringing in the Charlotte 49ers. They're coming over from Conference USA. They're bringing the North Carolina, the Charlotte in North Carolina into the footprint of the AAC. So that's what it does for them. It helps them in terms of North Carolina. They're also bringing in Florida Atlantic from the Conference USA, so it's helping them keep a footprint in Florida. And Carl Pelini, and now Tom Herman is over there, the former Florida coach. So if he can hone that program and do what he did at Houston, he can eventually help them grow into being a serviceable and a good program. And who knows, they can probably end up winning the AAC. So they're an intriguing. I just always found them very intriguing in terms of where they're mapped and the type of football. I mean, there some years they're good, some years they're not good, but they're also in Florida. And anyone knows, in terms of recruiting, Florida is like a hotbed in terms of recruiting. So if they sure it up, they can get some good talent from out there. You also have North Texas Mean Green coming over from Conference USA. They're a good quality program. I think they're definitely going to help the AAC. It also is going to help them maintain a good foothold in Texas. They've always had teams in Texas, and then they're bringing in Rice also. Rice is good academic school. That's the one thing I would definitely say. It just continues their hold in Texas. Hopefully maybe the level of competition will help them improve. So, and then you have University of Alabama Birmingham coming over from Conference USA. No, are they going? Wait a minute. They're going into. Yeah, they're going to the AAC. And their head coach is going to be Trent Dilfer. He just took over for them, so they're bringing that into the AAC. And then University of Texas San Antonio is going over also to the AAC. So the AAC is really picking up quite a few teams, and they're really expanding and staying true to their philosophy as the American conference. So, and then in Conference USA, you have the Liberty Flames, who are independent, joining their ranks. You have New Mexico State Aggies, who are also independent, joining their ranks. And then you have the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Jacksonville State was actually, and Sam Houston State, those two were actually FBS teams. So they're going to be joining. And then you have Kennesaw State, who accepted an invitation. So they're stepping up their level of competition. So there's a lot of movement going on within college sports, and it's very intriguing, which leads to more rumors. With that, what's going to be happening, is there a possibility of any more? And the big ones are, yes, there are rumors about possible more movement. For the Big Ten, is it Oregon and Washington? Are you bringing them in? For the Big 12, are you going to be bringing what's known as the Quarter Four, which is Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, and Arizona? If you do that, that's going to basically shut down the Pac-12 as the way it's known. It's no longer going to be a Power 5 per se. Even if they reload and add other teams, they're going to lose. And what's going to happen with teams like Stanford and California? Are they going to stay there, or are they going to be given opportunities to move on? Because, for example, if they went to the Big Ten, they fit the Big Ten in terms of academics. That's one of the biggest things about the Big Ten. All the schools, have to be aligned academically, and they all are. So they fit that mantra, and then from there, Stanford and Cal, they also fit that mantra. And then what it will do is, if you were to bring in Oregon and Washington, number one, you give UCLA and USC Western partners to always work with, so they at least always have 3 games there on the West Coast before they have to go over into the rest of the Big Ten, and then they can fill out the rest of their schedule with teams on the West Coast. So it's not like they would be completely lost or have to travel, for example, from LA to Piscataway, New Jersey every year, or to Maryland or things like that. They will probably have to go to Penn State, yes, or Michigan or Ohio State, but you'll mix it up. They'll mix it up properly and make it fair. If that were to happen, to bring over Washington and Oregon, and then out in terms of the Big 12. I think it's a perfect match. I think football-wise, I'll be honest, I think Utah is a perfect match for the Big Ten in terms of football-wise, but in terms of location and what they bring, they would be a good fit for the Big 12. So, they have a great opportunity no matter what. Arizona State and Arizona, they would be perfect for the Big 12 in terms of what they play. Colorado is, because of the new coach with Deion Sanders there, it's just, you don't know right now. You saw what Deion did at at Jacksonville State. Not Jacksonville State, Jackson State. I am so sorry about that. But it shows you that he has the ability to build the program. But if so, then yeah, they're a perfect fit for the Big 12. Then you also have Boise and SMU. What are they going to do? Are they going to join one of those two conferences? If they do, more than likely, I see them going to the Pac-12 if the Pac-12 loses all those teams. We would give the Pac-12 the Idaho market as well as the Dallas media market. They'll bring in San Diego State and other teams in the area to play along with whoever's left, which is basically right now is Oregon State and Washington State. Feel sorry for them, but I also understand the impact of college sports and what it does in itself and what it brings to the table. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I'm going to be talking about that a lot more as we go. And we're going to see what happens with college realignment. Where does it go? I also want to hear from you guys. Like I said earlier, definitely give me, reach out to me and let me know what you think. Whether it's through Twitter, whether it's through YouTube, definitely let me know. So, but what we're going to do now, we're going to take another commercial break for our final sponsor, which is Go Travels or Get Out Travels. Get Out Travels is about helping people get out and explore the world. Go Travels or Get Out Travels will help you get out and travel to experience new adventures anywhere. We specialize in travels throughout North, Central, and South Americas, but we can also help you find those special places anywhere in the world. We will be the guiding hand as you create engaging, long-lasting, and lifelong memories. However you wish to get your destination via land, air, or sea, Go Travels is the one you can count on to get you where you need to go. In addition to travel adventures, we can help you set your plans for sporting events, concerts, and theme parks. We are experienced at catering to all your travel needs. When you are traveling outside the U.S., we will help you to make sure that all your paperwork are in order or help you to obtain whatever is required for your travels. To book a trip, go to Go Travel's website at www.getoutravels.com. That's GETOUTRAVELS. You can also visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/getouttravels. You can also email us at getouttravels@yahoo.com. GETOUTRAVELS@yahoo.com, or call 517-888-5809. Go Travels, where we bring your adventures to life. All right, thank you, Go Travels, for that. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all my sponsors, everyone who's helped me with this new venture. I really appreciate everything you guys are bringing to the table for me. So what I'm going to do now is start to wrap things up, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the NFL free agency that we were talking about, and the NFL and the upcoming season. Now, I just wanted to touch on it earlier, but now that we're closing down, I can also start to go back and really finish up the way we needed to earlier. So I talked about some of the teams, earlier. Sorry about that. Here we go. Free agency tracker. There it is. All right, now I talked to you briefly about Derek Carr, Mike McGlinchey. One of the players that I wanted to talk more about is Javon Hargrave. He played for the Philadelphia Eagles last year, and he's going over to San Francisco. Now, Hargrave is one of those heart and soul type of players within the defensive line for the Eagles. He helped them. Now, the Eagles did have plenty of players where they were able to rotate players, but he was that one type of player that I felt was just him and Fletcher Cox were the true key cogs to their whole defense, because they would control the middle of that defensive line. They would cause havoc, forcing the offense to play on their side of the ball instead of moving to the defensive side of the ball. They would also shut down the run, but also push the pocket and cause sacks. Because remember, the Eagles led the league with 70 sacks last year, and that's a lot. And he was one of the key components to help that. So them losing him is going to be a big factor in my eyes. What does Philadelphia do to combat that, to replace that? Are they bringing now? I know they brought back Fletcher Cox, but how are they going to fill the loss of Hargrave? And if you were to end up facing Hargrave, how do you combat him? Because you're losing players, like I said. They are definitely losing quite a few players, both on offense and defense. If I take a look here, I think they also just lost Isaac Seumalo. Fletcher Cox was signed. Javon Hargrave, Seumalo. They brought back Bradbury. TJ Edwards, they lost him. So there are some key pieces that they are losing that, if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm concerned. And then when you take a look at this division, all the teams are improving. Washington's improving. My Giants are improving. Dallas is improving. Now, I'm not saying Philadelphia isn't doing things to improve, but it's, what are they doing to fill those pieces that they need to input into, to help them stay at the top of the division and to compete for the Super Bowl. Now, they do have one important facet is their quarterback. Jalen Hurts is definitely a good quarterback. So, once they, continue to, work on his contract and hopefully solidify him going into the future, I think they'll be fine. They have some good receivers. They have good running backs. They did pick up Rashad Penny, so he's going to help in the loss of one of their their running backs. So it's definitely interesting to me to watch how Philadelphia, what they're doing, especially being that they're one of my opponents. Another player that I found interesting was changing teams was Jesse Bates, one of the top safeties in the NFL. He's leaving Cincinnati for Atlanta. Now he signed with Cincinnati 4 years, $64 million. So hey, I understand. There's $64 million. The reason why you're leaving to go there. Hey, just do what you got to do. But how does that impact Cincinnati? What does Cincinnati do to replace that? The other team that I think is intriguing to watch is the Denver Broncos. Denver, number one, signing their new head coach, and now they're bringing a plethora of players. They're bringing in offensive linemen, to help. Mike McGlinchey is one. Ben Powers is another one. So, you're attacking the line. Zach Allen on defense, left Arizona for Denver. So I'm intrigued to watch how they, continue to build their team and what they're doing to build it up. So it's interesting. And then, with the new coaching staff, how does everything mesh? How does everything gel? The other team that I'm interested in, they had a plethora of money. They also made the big trade, trading away the first round number one overall draft pick to move down. You also pick up a number one receiver, and that's the Chicago Bears. I mean, they're giving Justin Fields the tools that he needs to be successful. I mean, and I definitely can appreciate, what they're doing. It intrigues me. How are they going to gel? They still have money to spend in free agency, as well as plenty of picks in the draft. So, they could quickly, very quickly, transition to be one of the top teams in all of football. So, well, I'm not going to say all of football, but if they gel and they grasp right and they have the young pieces to develop, they could be a team that could contend within the future, maybe within 2 years. It will not surprise me if they're up there during that time frame. So we definitely want to keep an eye out on them. And then what are they going to do in the draft? They have so many different ways that they can go. I mean, they picked up 2 linebackers. They picked up Edmonds, and they picked up what's his name, T.J. Edwards from the Eagles. Which hurts the Eagles and helps them. So, how do they develop? How do they build? Do they take a Jalen Carter? Young, tough defensive lineman, help him grow, but allow him to help them perform better. What do they do with the rest of their draft? What do they do again in free agency? Right now, it looks like don't know exactly how much they have left to spend, but I think they had almost $100 million to spend initially. So, I'm trying to take a look here at the salary cap, see. It looks like they have about $41 million left to spend. So that tells me everything I need to know right there. So, so I mean, hey, you still have $41 million to spend. They have 62 players signed. So, and that's just to get to the 90 players. So, it's interesting. I'm actually using Spotrac to calculate this and look at this. For anybody who's wanting to know where I'm getting my information, you can take a look at that to see, exactly what I'm talking about. Go to Spotrac.com, SPOTRAC.com, and you just look up the salary cap. Go to the NFL and they'll give you the salary cap and the salary cap tracker. So, but it's interesting, and then if you want to take a look at free agents, who are some of the top free agents left? Free agent tracker. Okay, so if we take a look at the free agents, like right now I'm looking at some of the trending players are Adam Thielen possibly to the Carolina Panthers. That's interesting. Well, Ezekiel Elliott, he's just a free agent. We didn't even talk about Laramie Tunsil from signing with Houston. I mean, that was a big sign also there because he's one of the top offensive tackles. I mean, and he's going to set a trend for a lot of other offensive linemen going forward. So I'm intrigued to see, how things develop with him, because it's also going to affect my team, the New York Giants. I can't lie to you, it's definitely going to affect us. So because of Andrew Thomas, it's elevating the market. So I'm just interested. So that's pretty much it with the free agents. So I'm going to close out again with another commercial for the Shadow Worlds, and then I want to thank everyone for tuning in. With Shadow Worlds Radio, the feel-good experience that connects the community and reflects light. With Shadow Worlds, you are able to listen to great music and find us out in the community, positively impacting lives, addressing important social issues which reflect our communities, and bringing an interactive approach to life, love, sports, and family. If you're looking for great DJ service, contact Shadow Worlds. To listen to powerful talk radio, tune into the Unconcealed Talk Show, where it's about making strong and positive moves. For great sports talk, check out Heart of the City, where passion for New York City sports kicks it to another level. To take it back in the days, listen to Daz Smith and The Retro Show, where he brings you classic 80s music from down under. Good day, mate. Shadow Worlds Radio. It's bringing you everything you're looking for from an online radio and media outlet. To visit Shadow Worlds Radio, check out our website at www.shadowworlds.com or Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Shadow Worlds Radio. And that's Shadow Worlds spelled SHADOWWORLDZ. That's Shadow Worlds with a Z. I want to thank everyone again for tuning in today. For my first episode. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in. I hope you enjoyed yourself. You really learned something. Again, if you have any questions, you can always visit my YouTube page. That's Coach Ed Gladney's Amazing World of Sports, and that's Ed spelled EDD. Or you can hit me on Twitter at Coach Ed G. Ed Gladney. Just look me up and interact with me. I really appreciate it. So thanks again to all my sponsors for supporting me: Shadow Worlds, Wise Consulting, and Go Travels. You guys are phenomenal. And until we meet again next week, same time, you guys stay safe, and peace and blessings to you all.
Shadow Worlds Radio presents Coach Ed's Read and Attack Sports Talk Show.
This is the Read and Attack Show.
This is a sports show where I dive into sports all across the world.
This is the Read and Attack Sports Talk Show.
And I give you my perspective.
Coach Ed
And attack.
Sports Talk Show.
I'm going to attack it just like I would as a coach.
Read and attack.
Read and attack.
Sports Talk Show.
I'm going to attack it just like I would as a coach.
Coach Ed's Read and Attack.
I'm going to give you my perspective.
This is the Read and Attack Sports Talk Show.
Thank you all for tuning in today.
Read and Attack.
This is a sports show where I dive into sports all across the world.
Coach Ed
Read and attack.
Sports Talk Show. Read and Attack.
Read and attack show.